What's up, 20-1? Hopefully everybody is staying busy out there and keeping caught up on their education on top of all your other responsibilities. I know it's busy. Today we're taking a look at a different topic than what we've been looking at the last few lessons. We're looking at absolute values. So we're going to move from radicals to absolute values. There's no real overlap here. So the absolute value of a number can be thought of as the distance from that number to 0 on a number line. So let's take a look at some number lines and see, like, well, what does that mean? So it says determine the absolute value of -6. Well, here's -6 and here's 0. How far is -6 from 0? Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places away. So the absolute value of -0 is, the absolute value of -6 is 6. Okay, that should make sense. Well, then let's say here's 5. How far away is that from 0? Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the absolute value of 5 is 5. So how far away is that from 0? Now, I'm not really a big fan personally of that definition. I prefer to just say whatever the value is, the absolute value will be the positive number of that. So for example, here, well, what's the absolute value of -6? It's whatever the positive value of that is 6. What's the absolute value of +5? It's also +5. So to symbolize the absolute value, we use vertical bars around a number or expression. So if I'm reading this, this says, what is the absolute value of -14? And I can again look at that as two ways. How far is -14 from 0? Or make -14 positive. So this should equal 14. That's how far it is away from 0, and that's what -14 is as a positive value, is 14. I can always check that on my calculator if you have to do like multiple expressions or if you have to start graphing things. We can hit my math button, and I actually have to go hit this arrow and move over, and this is ABS bracket, and so that's how I will get an absolute value. If you have a newer function, it will actually appear as those vertical bars. If you have an older calculator, it'll just say ABS bracket, and you'll have to put your information in. So like we just said, well, what's the absolute value of -14? It is that number positive. So it's +14. And again, I can type whatever number I kind of want within that absolute value function. This actually should be part of a different section because we're just looking at numerical values for absolute functions today, no variables. So here it says evaluate the following. So, well, what's the absolute value of 3? Well, absolute value of +3 is just a +3. What's the absolute value of -11? Well, all I need to do is take that -11, make it positive. That's going to be a +11. And again, I can check those on my calculator if I really want to, but we just need to recognize that the absolute value of a number is just going to be that number written as a positive. Okay, the next one says the absolute value of 28 minus 6. Now, once I have absolute values and I have multiple things kind of happening inside of that absolute value bracket, I kind of need to solve it the same way that I would solve, like a BEDMAS. We'll still treat those as if they are brackets. So what is 28 minus 6? Well, that's the absolute value of 22. What's the absolute value of 22? It's just 22. That answer, positive. Okay? Now here, I kind of need to treat these individually. So what's the absolute value of 4? The absolute value of 4 is 4 minus the absolute value of -6. The absolute value of -6 is actually a +6. Once I have solved for what each of those functions are and I've taken their absolute, now I can combine these. Well, what's 4 minus 6? It's -2. That's going to be my final answer, right? There's not saying take the absolute value of this answer. They're saying take the absolute value of each of those functions and subtract them. Next one, again, I kind of want to treat these brackets as if they're part of my BEDMAS, so I'm going to do inside of here first. So this is 5 minus 3 times the absolute value of 2 minus 7. Well, 2 minus 7 is a negative 5. But I want to take the absolute value of that. So this is 5 minus 3 times, what's the absolute value of minus 5? It's a positive 5. So this is just now, to take the absolute value of that would be a positive 5. Now I can solve. 5 minus 15 is going to give me a negative 10. For this one, if I'm not sure, let's just go check my calculator that is right. So 5 minus 3 times the absolute value of 2 minus 7. Hit enter, I get negative 10. So I know that I've kind of gone through that in the correct order. Okay, within here, so that absolute value, we're going to solve everything in there, and whatever the final answer is, take the absolute value of that. So within here, we still need to go through BEDMAS in the correct order. So brackets first, so I'll go in here. So the absolute value of negative 2. 5 minus 7 is negative 2 squared plus 6, and that's just the absolute value. Now exponents, so for BEDMAS, so negative 2 times negative 2 squared is 4 plus 6. Now I got to do division and multiplication next, so the absolute value of negative 8 plus 6 would give me the absolute value of negative 2. Well, what's the absolute value of negative 2? It's a positive 2. Okay, so you have to go through those and look at them with BEDMAS, but also make sure that you're taking the absolute value at the right place depending on the placement of the brackets. Okay, and there's some questions for you to do in the homework that are like that. Just one problem-solving question here for us to look at, and then I'll get you to go check out some homework. So it says, on stock markets, individual stocks and bonds fluctuate a great deal. A particular stock opened the month at $13.55 per share. It dropped to $12.70, and then it increased to $15.05, and then it closed the month at $13.85. Determine the total change of the value of the stock over the month, and this shows how active or inactive a stock was. So what I would do is just, first of all, just write down like how this stock is changing. Well, it starts the month at $13.55, and then it drops to $12.70, and then it increased to $14.05, and it closes the month at $13.85. And so we're going to look at, well, what happened within this period of change? Well, the stock, it decreased by 85 cents. Here, in this period of change, it increased by $1.35. And in this period, it decreased by 20 cents. Now, they're looking for the total change. Now, the total change means, really what I'm doing is I got to take the absolute values of these numbers and add them together. I'm not worried about like what was the difference over the course of the month. I'm worried about how much did it change in total. So really, I'm just taking 0.85 plus 1.35 plus 0.2 and adding them together to get 240. Because I've taken the absolute values of those negative numbers just to add it all up to produce my total change. Okay, there is some basic absolute value function questions, and then some more complicated ones where you need to make sure you go through in the right order, and then a problem-solving question or two there for you. So check out some questions on homework 5. Once you're comfortable, go try the absolute value quiz. Thanks for listening, guys. Any questions? Please, please, please fire me a text, email, remind, whatever works for you. Okay, thanks.